Mark, do you want to go through premises and common area and add-on factors?
Sure. I think probably the obvious is that we want to identify the premises, clearly identify it in the lease, and also with a lease exhibit that shows us just where it is. But probably the thing we want to talk about a little more is the common area add-on factor. And probably most of the office brokers know this concept, but you have a usable square feet where you can put people and furniture and equipment. And then you have an add-on factor, which is a pro-rata allocation of common area, the lobby, the restrooms, and things that are in common with all the other tenants. If you add those two together, you come up with a rentable square feet. And that's where your rent and your operating expenses and all are paid for. The key to this, and it's addressed in the book, is that you have a standard method of measurement. And the commonly used standard is the BOMA method. I can recall early in my career meeting with a landlord in Boca who there was a glass line and then there was a long eave that probably went out another 15 feet. And he was trying to charge my client for about 1,000 square feet of space, 2,000 square feet. And I asked him what method, and he said it was the New York method. So I think that's kind of that's the catch-all, if you don't know what else to call it. But basically, you want a common standard that's nationally recognized, probably internationally recognized. Beyond that, I think you insist on that method. The other things you can do is verify the size independently before the lease execution. That can be done pretty quickly and easily and inexpensively. I try not to, on the tenant perspective, allow a remeasure. They're tenants, and we've had experiences where you've been in space for 5 years and a new owner comes in or a new property manager, they decide to remeasure the building or the space, and all of a sudden you're paying more, and that's not a pleasant thing either, unless obviously the project is added on to. Add-on factor can also be subject to market conditions. You can have a building with a giant lobby and the real factor is 27%, but the market's going to bear 13 to 18. So you want to know what the market is. You want to know what others are allowing, and advocate for your client to fall within that range.
Right. So Nat, from your perspective, have you purchased or inherited a building that had an excessive add-on factor that you were hoping to get a few more points on that than the market would allow?
Yes, there were going to be occasions, and Mark is absolutely right in the sense that there's certain bandwidth that the market will bear in terms of add-on factor, and a lot of this is actually driven by what happens at the point of acquisition, to be honest with you. And so I think the brokers who I've worked with are very experienced, will understand what they're getting into when they take that assignment and really understand that building and how that owner acquired it. And so an example would be an acquisition that was done on a relatively new construction, and you would think that the usable and rentable square footage would be known, but obviously a lot of things change as they are getting permitted, and things change slightly from the initial leases that get put in. So even on brand new projects I've worked on, there will be a slight discrepancy in terms of how the square footages are papered in those initial leases that we end up acquiring. And there will be situations where there's a mistake done, and basically you may have a vacancy that reflects a large add-on factor because the building was acquired, say it was a 100,000 square foot building that you purchased a certain price per square foot for. And then what ends up happening as you go through the leasing process, you realize when you actually go through the BOMA standard measurements, it's something else, whether higher or lower. So then as I think savvy landlord reps will understand that dynamic and say, all right, here's a pathway for us to right size this building at some point, but is there an opportunity to remeasure it in its entirety? But yes, in short, really understand the product you're taking on if you're on the landlord side. And I think if on the tenant side, I agree with Mark that you want to adhere to a certain standard, and it's probably behoove you to lock down that ability to maintain that measurement. And also, I think very well informed tenant reps will understand the dynamics happening in that building if there is intention to do some renovations or add-on and how that might impact your client at a future date.
And that?
The really important, one of the really important takeaways is where you as a broker, property manager can add value for your owner is being really good about documenting what's going on in the building. When you show up on the job for a new acquisition, advocate doing a BOMR measurement. Keep that BOMR measurement around so you can refer to it on a regular basis. So when these things come up in lease negotiations, you're already ready with the facts and the figures. I have clients that are really good about this, and it works really well, and it makes a lot of this conversation sort of a non-issue because if you can show up with a really defensible BOMA measurement, it kind of is what it is. So this is a really good example of an area where you can bring value by advocating for your client. Hey, we just took over this building, let's do a BOMA measurement, we'll have it on file. And again, when you do that initial BOMA measurement, if there's a problem, if the add-on factor is way out of whack for market, you can get ahead of the issue and anticipate what's going on. So this is something I really recommend that you think about and talk about with your clients as you take on new assignments.